Todo, Piedro, abajo y balas.
Hi there. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's FringeCast, wherever you are in the world. We're coming to you live from kind of the basement of Fringe Society HQ in the heart of Edinburgh's Old Town. If technology is on our side, hopefully you should be able to see us.
Yay.
Hello, it's the morning. Good
morning everyone.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So today's episode is all about...
Sorry, I'm distracted. I did not realise how yellow the shirt was.
It is quite bright.
Yeah.
You're kind of blending in with the cupboards really well, or like the hand at the top. So today's episode is all about registering a show at the Fringe. So I've swapped seats with our regular host, Alan, who is our expert on registration. My name is Daniel Saunders. I'm the digital marketing coordinator here at the Fringe Society. So I look after our social media, our email marketing, and all the technical stuff, wizardry behind the scenes, which you may have noticed didn't work for a bit, which is why we're running about 1 or 2 minutes late. Alan, who are you?
Seamless. I'm Alan Gordon. I'm the registration manager here at the Fringe, which basically means I manage the registration process, but also look after our FringeCasts and any information sessions where we try and meet people in person around the country and the globe.
So I'm going to let us relax. You can take the shirt off screen, go back to our PowerPoint. So FringeCasts are kind of live streamed interactive podcasts. So they're like podcasts, but not quite as good because we don't have the chance to edit what we're saying. They're recorded live, so you can watch us live, but you also have the ability to come back and watch us at any point. You'll be able to fast forward and rewind and see what's happening in the live chat. The live chat, if you're on a desktop or a laptop, should appear in the top right-hand corner of YouTube, and you should see that we've popped a few messages in there already. And we'd love you to go in there and let us know where in the world you're tuning in from today. That's really helpful just to get a feel with who we're talking to. If you're listening on a mobile device or a tablet, live chat is often hidden behind a button at the bottom or at the top or the left or the right of the screen. I realise that's not super helpful. So you should be able to find that there. So you can send questions to us as we go, so we can kind of make sure that we've covered all your burning questions, and anything you're not sure about registration or anything you're not sure about when it comes to bringing a show to the Fringe, Alan can cover. So I think that's it. If we have any resources...
Put me on the spot, it'll be exciting.
I'll try and throw those questions, and if you don't know, or indeed the answer is quite long, we will share links to the resources on our website in the live chat. We're now seeing, we've got Michelle tuning in from Italy, Leroy saying good morning, we've got Berlin, someone just down the road in Edinburgh, Tobias in Denmark, so thanks for saying hi. Do throw your questions in there. We've also got your questions you sent in advance, which I'll throw at Alan as we go. So I guess today we're talking about registering for the Fringe. So what is the Fringe and what is registering, Alan?
Yeah, I think to understand the registration process, the first thing you have to do is really understand the story of the Fringe itself. We put it on the screen there so you can see. It started in 1947 as a bit of a wily act of rebellion in the true spirit that it still remains today. The thing that you really have to get across about the Fringe is we are completely open access. Which means we're non-curated. There is no one sitting programming what shows are allowed and not allowed to come to the
There
Fringe.
isn't a big red button that says no,
there's
this is not coming.
It's very much, if you have a story to tell and you can find the stage to tell it on, you can be a part of the Fringe. And that same ethos that was there in 1947 when 8 theatre companies just turned up that weren't invited to perform at the Edinburgh International Festival, our sister festival, and just performed anyway. That ethos is very much still alive today. And
we, like I say, we work for the Fringe Society.
Yeah.
So do you want to just give a bit of info of what the Fringe Society is?
Yeah, I would say the Fringe Society, so you can see there we were formed in 1958, and the thing that to get across is that we're here to support the festival and help it for participants, but also help audiences, help venues that we do not manage. So kind of we look after everything without owning anything.
So we don't. So when you're registering for the Fringe, you're not coming to the Fringe Society for us to give you a venue, because we don't run venues, we don't run shows, so we don't pick what shows come. Anyone is welcome, and it's the responsibility of the individual show, or as we call it, the performing company, to find a venue. Just speaking of venues, the Fringe is kind of world famous, and often you see pictures like this of street performers on massive unicycles, which is a little different from what we're covering today. Do you want to just explain the difference between street performing and the Fringe programme?
Absolutely. So we have, as Daniel says, a world-renowned street festival. It happens as part of the Fringe. It happens outside our Fringe shop, as you can see there, on the Royal Mile on the High Street, but also down in the Mound or other places around the city. It's almost like its own festival within the festival, I think it's safe to say, which means the registration process is a little bit different. So what we're talking about today is registering a show in a more I was going to say a more traditional theatre space. They're not really traditional spaces, but a more, like, if you're going to be in a venue with tickets or without, then you go through the registration process. If you're a street performer or a busker, it's a different process which kicks off in the spring. And
by street performer, we're kind of talking, you have a big circle show that can play to hundreds of people that maybe last 45 minutes, and it's quite an established circuit for this. So the Edinburgh Festival Fringe is probably not the place to dip your toe in the waters when it comes to that, but it's a great place for busking. But there is one way that registered shows can be part of the street events. Yeah, actually, and it's a way to help sort of market your show, which we talk about in FringeCasts sort of later in the year. But there are stages which are set up there exclusively for participants who have registered shows in the Fringe. So if you've registered, you can sort of take a 20-minute extract from your show and perform it on those stages on the Royal Mile. Perfect. And as you can kind of see, this picture is quite a good metaphor, because the Fringe Society, our offices are in the background of the photos. So we kind of sit to support everything, but we say we don't run shows, we don't run venues. Yeah. So we're impartial and we love everyone equally. And the thing to really sort of hammer home about the registration process, I think, is it's in no way an application. So it's not you applying to be allowed to be a part of the Fringe, it's you registering for the support and all of the benefits that come with the Fringe Society. And it's worth just going back to that history point, that the Fringe Society was created in 1958, and it was created by Fringe performers and Fringe participants to kind of join it up and make sense of the chaos. Yeah. And that's why it's one of the 3 pillars of our existence now. So when you're paying your registration fee, it's not just to be listed in the programme on the website, you get a lot more. Do you want to cover some of that? Yeah, so a lot of people talk about, like, why register? And obviously the most visible thing for people, especially at this time of year, is that listing in the official printed programme, which is pretty famous the world over, but then also a listing on our website and later the app when it is released. That's all important, but also if your show is ticketed, our box office will sell your tickets for you. That's something that we do. But also, you get us, the services of the Fringe Society. So whether that be speaking to one of our participants team about engaging industry or developing your career sort of after the Fringe, maybe you want to speak to our marketing team about writing a press release, contacting the right journalists for you, figuring out what your story is and how the best way to sort of get audiences involved in that.
all of those services kind of come wrapped up in registration.
And because we're impartial, the advice we give is independent. So if you're approaching venues, or they've issued you a contract, you're having these conversations, we can give informed, impartial advice, because we're not tied to any of these venues. We're here to support them, but we have no connections with them. So we are here to help make the Fringe a success, and we are unbiased in that objective, and we're a charity. That's what we do.
Yeah. The final thing I'd say that comes with registration is access to Fringe Central, which is the Fringe Society's kind of home away from home in August, and we'd like it to be home away from home for all of the artists that come to the Fringe. It's basically a base where we hold, last year there was over 100 events that we held for Fringe participants, ranging from stuff for your technical team, to your writer, to your director, to actors. There's auditions in there, there's best practice workshops, there's kind of debates on the state of the arts, and also it's a place where you can just like hang out, rest, do your admin, kind of get a bit zen after the chaos, and all of that comes with the registration fee you pay now. So I guess the thing I'm stressing is like that it's not just about getting in the program. All of what comes is the support that you're going to get from now till your show wraps up at the end of August.
I've just typed in the live chat. It's great to hear where you're all tuning in from, but I have noticed a few people have joined us sort of a few minutes late. So I'm just going to do a super quick recap of how FringeCasts work. So these are live podcasts, so they're like a podcast, but not quite as good because we have no chance of editing any questions that we may not answer very well, or
but more dangerous.
More dangerous.
Exciting.
But the important thing is that means that you can send questions to us through live chat on YouTube. I can send them over to Alan to, often without any warning, to try and answer them, or at least point you in the right direction of an answer. If you're on YouTube, to leave a comment, all you need to do is sign in with a Google account or a YouTube account, and that will allow you to leave a comment. If you're not able to do that for whatever reason, you can also just send in a tweet at #FringeCast at the bottom of the screen, and I'll have my phone on the desk and I'll be checking that out as well to throw questions Alan's way. And then finally, that this session is recorded as we do it, so if there's anything you miss, you can come back to it later through the same link you used to connect. But we do recommend not pausing or rewinding it if you're listening live, because then you're still in sync with us and we could potentially be answering your question as you're asking it. I thought I'd just recap that there. So please do send in your questions.
Excellently recapped though.
So what's next? So to give a sense of the Fringe and what people are getting into if they've never been before.
Yeah, I guess we want you to be aware of the scale of the Fringe. Like we're the largest open access arts festival in the world. The numbers on the screen at the moment are the number of shows that took part in the Fringe last year that were registered. So 3,548. Why I think that's important to the registration process is, one, as Daniel said, just to let you know the kind of the scale that you're sort of stepping into, that arena that you're stepping into. But at the same time, during the registration process, it can be quite easy to get frustrated, saying that as the person in charge of it, because we ask you for so many different bits of information, and you might just think, hang on, I'm doing a black box show with just me and a mic. Why am I having to answer like loads of questions that aren't relevant? Actually, that's because the questions we ask have to work for all 3,548 shows. And I think actually, if I'm positioned at the start of that journey, you're probably at the end of that journey, Daniel.
So we have over 3,500 shows in over 300 venues. But beyond that, there are hundreds of thousands of people visiting the Fringe with different wants, needs, requirements. And we need to know all this information about your show in advance. So if they get in touch with us, particularly looking from my perspective on social media, people are asking us questions about shows, about venues, particularly in relation to accessibility, whether it's got level access, or maybe that there's BSL interpretation, or if there's trigger warnings. There's various other things that people need to know. And we have to treat kind of all shows equally. We have to ask all shows everything. And just on that numbers point, there's 300 plus venues, but within those venues, there are multiple spaces. Yeah. And I think at our last count in 2018, there were just over 1,000 different spaces in which shows took place. And this does not even include the street events.
Yeah.
So we have to have questions that cover all these bases to get all that information at the start, because we're not going to be able to get it off you in August or after we've gone to print. We need to make sure the program is as accurate as possible, because one of our objectives as a charity is to help people navigate the chaotic at times, a manic world of the Fringe where everything and anything is possible, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible to find their way around it.
Totally. And the kind of the last thing I'd say on those numbers is, as we've said, hopefully enough already, like, we're here to support you. So if you are in any way struggling with the registration process, please do not struggle or suffer alone in silence. Like, drop an email to program@edfringe, or our phone numbers on the website as well. If you just want to give us a ring and talk to one of the team, it can really help. Like, so normally we can fix something quite simple. So please, if you've got something that's becoming a bit of a stress, just let us know. And in terms of scale, obviously the earlier you're doing that, the sort of quicker we can respond, because you imagine that's the number of shows that our quite small team are working through. Like, we had one day last year around the deadlines where, because I know I'm probably the same when I've been a participant in the past, there's the tendency of I'll leave it to the deadline as long as I make it. But we had over 1,000 shows register on one day last year, which then we all have to turn around.
And there's no such thing as a stupid question, because there are so many quirks and things you may not have thought of, and we're here to help. Like, it's open up. First, we can't reject your show. Yeah. So no matter what you do, you're in the program if you've registered and got a venue. But we're here to help. But the sooner you ask, the sooner we can avoid a challenge, and the earlier you ask, the more time we have to help you. Because say with 1,000 shows being edited at any one time, and a small team, like, how many of you are there on the program team at this time?
So at this time of year, there's 3 of us.
Okay.
We just got a little bit bigger last week. However, we go up to 10 by around the deadline. So from the end of February, we go up to a team of 10, and that's us, which is like 354 shows each.
Wow, that's quite a lot to look after. Just looking at the live chat, we've had a few questions come in. Questions about registration will fit quite nicely about deadlines. As unscripted as this is, we do have some resources that we can move on to with that. We have had some questions in now, and quite similar to the episode we had yesterday, about venues. And what we would say is we do have some resources about that, about choosing a venue. We can go into more detail about that later, but if it's okay, Alan, do you want to just cover the super basics as quickly as possible about how people find venues and that mechanism?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically it's the shoes on your foot, so to speak, to go and approach those venues.
You never said that.
Yeah, the shoes on your foot.
It's not going to catch on, is it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. We would probably advise speaking to between 8 and 10 venues. Mm-hmm. There's a venue search tool that's on our website. Also, you can email our team if you've got specific requirements, which is participants@edfringe.com. To kind of simplify it right down, if you're trying to think what venue should I be looking at, I think you want to think location, you want to think capacity, and you want to think like what type of work that venue is known for. And a really useful tool to do all of that, which sounds quite daunting, is last year's programme, which I'm sure Daniel will be able to put a link to in the comments. Look around, find those shows that are similar to what you want to do. If you can find a company that's at the stage in their career you're at now, but they were there last year, that's who you want to try and mirror. You want to be like, okay, what kind of spaces were they? How did they set their prices? What venues did they go in? You don't want to take your theatre show to somewhere that specialises in stand-up comedy, because that's not probably where your audience is. The venue's not probably kitted out. But it's about approaching venues and just being really honest and transparent about what you need from them. And like, you don't want to go in bullshit or like trying to like a hard sell, or it's generally about starting a relationship which could become like your home for the month. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
We've had just on that, we've had sort of, I think your answer will be similar to what you've just said, but there's a question that came and said, I have a musical performance, how do I choose the location at the festival? So I assume your advice is take previous performance as an example. Yeah,
if you go last year's programme, head to the...
I've popped the link in.
If it's like a music show, head to the music section, or if it's a musical, and you'll start to see there are spaces that specialise in that, spaces that crop up again and again in that section of the programme. If you find a show that actually like, oh, that they're really similar to what I'm doing, most of the time you can find them really easily on social media. Participants generally would really like it if someone reaches out to them. the sort of Fringe community and artists in general, from what I found, they kind of like to pay back if they've learned something, if they've had a really great experience, or hopefully not, but maybe like a not so good experience. They'll give you that sort of honest, frank answer.
So hopefully that's covered some of the questions. I may not have picked you out by name in the thread, but for example, Michelle asked, how do I get in touch with the venues where I want to perform? Our search toolkit is great for that. There's a link, I pop a link in there somewhere. And indeed, if you can't find what you're looking for, if you've got specific needs, participants@edfringe.com is the best email address, because we have a dedicated team who are here to support. But just to reiterate, we are impartial, so we won't say venue X is perfect for you, but we can say, okay, you need a grand piano. Here are the venues that have a grand piano on site, because the last thing you want to do is turn up in August having not asked for a grand piano and try to source one, which is never going to...
Bit of a top tip, just never assume anything. So like if you've had really successful runs back home in the middle of March where there's not a lot of competition maybe, and you normally do a 100-seater, you maybe want to reduce to like 40-50-seater because you're going to have a lot of competition, you're not going to be on your home turf. But also never assume how long you're going to get for a tech or what's going to be there. You always want to ask the venue. The venue will have the answer to those questions, and if not, they'll get those. They would much rather deal with those inquiries now than like the 1st of August.
And same with registration, just ask if there's something that isn't clear. Yeah. And Alan, you are going to show the registration system and the ins and outs of that. But before you go on to that, we've talked about finding a venue, and we can go into that in more detail later. But once you've found a venue, you're going to ask them about how you register your show, and there's a few differences, aren't there, depending on what venue you choose.
So there are 3 distinct ways your show could be registered with us, but they all end up in the same place. The first one is, back to that shoe being on your foot. You register yourself. We have software, which we'll get to, as Daniel says, where you log in, you give us all of your information, you register your show. Your venue also has access to that, and they'll be able to like approve it to make sure that you've said what you've said you're going to do, and that's you done. It all is very much with you.
You're really shoehorning in the shoe is on your foot.
Yeah, like, I know.
It's not going to stick.
It is. It's going to be like, we're going to have like branded t-shirts for our next episode to get away from this yellow shirt. The second option is still in that same software, but basically your venue will register on your behalf. So if you've secured your venue, which we should say, the one prerequisite that you need to register your show is you need to have a venue contract in place. We don't ask for anything else, but you need to have your venue contract in place before you can register your show.
And the reasons we do that is because the Fringe is open access. Once you register, you're in. So that is the only verification we need to ensure that when you say you're performing in this location at this time, that indeed you're allowed to.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we want is come August that you don't have a venue and we're directing people to a venue where there isn't a show. That's the last thing we want.
So there are some venues around the city who they will register all of their shows on their behalf on our system directly. You'll still very much probably be added, like someone of your team will probably be added as a contact, or you might get permissions to be able to update things like your social media, but by and large your venue will do it for you. So always check with your venue. Do you handle the registrations? How does that process work?
This isn't your choice. This is set
this is very much set by your venue.
Okay.
In that case, they will be going on to fees, but paying your fee, your registration fee, is the last process of when you hit register. That's when you pay your fee. If your venue is doing it for you, chances are that the registration fee will be paid directly to them rather than to us.
And we'll come back to that when we talk about fees. I was just going to say, if you do want a sort of a bit of an overview about finding a venue and looking at your budget, the last episode of our FringeCast series, episode 2, focused just on finding a venue and budgeting, and I'm just going to pop a link to the YouTube recording in the live chat. Don't cut to it now, we don't want to lose listeners midway through this episode, but we do recommend checking that out because it covers all the ins and outs of budgeting and venues, but we can still obviously answer any questions you may have today or after you watch that. We're still here to help. It's what we're here to do.
And you know what? Really quick plug. The next episode, the 13th and 14th of February, that's actually kind of a recap episode. So if you're sitting today being like, oh, this is all really interesting and I love Alan's shirt and his metaphors about shoes, we actually we're going to run, but you're feeling like, oh, I think this is a bit further down the road than I am. We're running that recap session again, just so as everyone can start from the
and if you don't like the metaphors about shoes, you can still tune into that, and we can,
because Daniel will cut them. I won't be allowed to.
Them out. We're still live, but I'll just find a way to mute it whenever it happens. We've had one question from Suzanne, and it is venue related, but I think we can pick it up now. And she says, I've applied to 3 venues but haven't been given an offer yet. When or should I chase, and should I apply for more?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a bad thing to like approach more people, as long as they're still like on your wish list, you still want them, they tick all your boxes. Absolutely approach them. With the people you're waiting to hear back from, I would say it's general kind of rules of you want to follow up, not pester. I think is a really important line, but a very fine line. So don't feel like you're absolutely hounding someone with an email. Like if it takes like a couple of weeks, like that's kind of what it does, because they're trying to process lots and lots of shows. But if you want to do like a polite kind of, oh hi, I'm just wondering if I can get an update on when the response will be, just because I'm trying to plan like sort of my plan A, B, and C.
Jill has got in touch to ask, or to say, I have not had a contract yet for my venue. Did you say the venues register the show for me, or do I still have to register myself? So
that's something to check with your venue, because some venues will just be like, on you go, you can start registering your show right now. Other venues will be like, we're going to do it for you. And that last point we just put up on the screen is some will have their own system. So some will require that you fill in all of our details, but it's not necessarily on the system we're going to show you. It will inevitably end up there. All the information ends up there, and that feeds our website and our app and like sort of our database. However, you may use, so always check with your venue. How does the registration process work? Is it me? Is it you? What system should I use?
It's kind of the golden rule, is just
ask.
So that's with those questions on ways to register. If you have more, we can come back to it. But next, are we going to talk about, a lot of people have been asking about deadlines and fees, and it's rather miraculous. Yeah. We've now got a slide with that information on. So we've got these key dates coming up. Do you want to explain these differences? I see you've got a discount rate and a final deadline. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you'll see the discount rate actually just when we update the slide and talk more about fees. But basically, if you can have your show completely registered by the 13th of March at 5 p.m. GMT, then you will save, if you're doing a full run of your show, which we class as 6 or more performances of your show, you can save, it's practically £100 that you save by and give and take a couple of pence. You save around £100 on your registration fee if you can, as a reward kind of for getting in there early.
And like you say, it's a little thank you because of the sheer number of shows that register. If you can get that all wrapped up sooner, it means we just have the time to get all the shows registered, because if they were all coming on the 10th of April, I don't know how we'd squeeze them all in the
but if they were all coming in on the 10th of April, we would very much struggle to
we'd
have it printed.
We'd have the programme printed by day one of the Fringe at a push. So then you've got the final deadline on the 10th of April, but what do you mean by final?
So final deadline means that's your last chance to get into the official printed programme for the Fringe.
Okay.
That's our cut-off point. That may seem quite early to some people, but it's exactly what Daniel was saying. Like, we then have to turn around all of that information and get it printed, ready to launch on the 5th of June, which is that last date on the screen.
And it is one of the biggest printed document, the most complicated printed documents printed in the UK. The number we have to print and the complexity of the document.
And also something that kind of stands alone with it is in terms of like print documents. And I know you hate to admit this, Daniel, because you live in a digital world and very much dislike paper. But something that still surprises us is we do market research at the end of the Fringe every year to ask a whole variety of questions about how people experience the Fringe, and it's a staggering number of people still have the printed programme as their primary source of information.
So when we asked them, what tools do you use to plan your Fringe and navigate the Fringe? And the programme is really popular. It's actually so popular. When we asked them the question, what is the number one tool you use to explore the Fringe? It's something in excess of 70% still say the printed programme is the thing, even in this, with the age of apps and everything. They'll still use them all, but the guide, like the program, is kind of this hallowed document that a dedicated Fringer will always have, whether that's on their coffee table at home as they're planning their Fringe adventure, or in their backpack as they're going around the streets of Edinburgh.
And I cannot tell you how much that pains Daniel to say that a bit of paper is someone's primary source, so he definitely means it.
It is extraordinary in 2018 how much love there still is for this programme. So if you that deadline is there. We call it final deadline because the vast majority of shows hit that deadline because they would know the value of being in the printed programme. Yeah,
we do reopen registration at the very end of May for shows that then would go on sale after we launch. At the earliest, it's like a week after we launch. I would say, so it's absolutely a valid option. The disadvantages of that option is that so many people use that printed programme as like a primary source. It kind of means you catch yourself playing catch up quite a bit. But if you find a venue a bit later, or you just haven't been able to make things work until then, it's definitely an option there for you.
So hopefully this answers your question, Michelle, from earlier about how many deadlines there are. So there's ultimately one deadline, but if you can get things wrapped up early, you can save it. It just makes everyone's lives a lot easier. Do you want to just go into the fees, and then we can give more context on the discount and what we mean by full run? Because I know from previous sessions, some people wanted some more clarity on what we mean by full run and limited run. So just want to recap full run.
First thing I'd like to say, these figures have been frozen for this is the 12th year running. Mm-hmm. We've got our commitment to keep them frozen until at least 2022.
Yep, for the 75th anniversary of the Fringe.
And that's us just trying to keep the Fringe as accessible as possible. So basically a full run of your show would cost £393.60. As Daniel was asking, a full run, very much the price of your show depends on how many performances you're doing. So if you're a band who are doing like just a one-off gig in the middle of August and it's one performance, you'd have that further down fee of £96 for you doing one or two performances. That suddenly goes up to like closer to a full week, 3 to 5 performances, it jumps up to £204, and then that full run, so anything from 6 performances and above is £393.60.
And by performances, it's probably worth being really clear on what we mean by performance and this what we call one show, one listing idea.
Yeah, so it's very much about a single performance of that one show.
The same show.
Our policy that we have to be a bit strict on is one that we call one show, one listing. And it basically means for every listing in the Fringe programme, you can only talk about that one show. Or one kind of event that's happening. You can't sort of team up loads of different ones.
I think of just an example off the top of my head. If you are a theatre group and you're bringing an adaptation of Hamlet and an adaptation of Othello, they are different shows, so they need different listings. And even if, imagine if you do one for 5 performances and one for another 5 performances, that wouldn't be a full run. That would be 2 different shows of a limited run.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the only way we can keep it fair and keep the programme making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the same across the board, whether your Fringe tickets be on the expensive end or whether they be absolutely free. Everyone pays the same.
And no matter what the venue size or anything, it's just one of those rules that the Fringe is equal. Everyone pays the same. So you can see the discount rate at the bottom there. So that's for any show registered by 5 p.m. UK time on the 13th of March. So what's summer registration and how do you get that?
Summer registration was that late registration that we're talking about. The reason that it goes back down is kind of those disadvantages we were talking about earlier. You don't get that printed programme. You're kind of going to be playing catch up. You're not going to be getting the full sort of service. So we'll lower it back down to the discounted rate.
We've had a question,
I should say as well, sorry, they all include VAT. So there's no, the situation with VAT, like if you are claiming it back or whatever, there's no hidden cost.
They include VAT.
That's include VAT.
Okay. And if you can't pay the full, like all at once, how
we've got an instalment scheme. So actually, if you head, I'm sure Dan will be able to drop a link. If you head to the registration part of our website, there's like a small, kind of like a mini questionnaire of questions we ask you to see if you're eligible for paying in instalments. And if you are, you can come straight to the team, email program@edfringe.com, and we'll put you in touch with our lovely finance team. I say finance team, it's one person at the moment that will grow, and they can set up instalments for you to pay.
But the final payment has to be made by the deadline.
So if you wanted the discounted rate, you have to have paid by the in full by the 13th
There's
of March.
there's not a cheeky workaround where you can go by instalments and pay your last instalment in July, but...
And obviously your show wouldn't be able to go on sale, which we'll talk about later, until you've paid in full.
We've had... I will pop in the link to instalments, but I actually have another answer already written in the chat box.
Okay, go
in advance of this question, which was about, is it possible to register / put in my show with the UK General Student Visa? So when it comes to registering a show, we are only looking for you to have that venue contract. When it comes to your rights as a performer, particularly from overseas, we have guidance. So I'll come. That's a great comment by Leroy, which I'll come back to. We've got guidance for international performers about visas and tax requirements, which change year on year, which are much easier when written out in full. I can't explain them very succinctly because they're unsurprisingly quite complex. And I was giggling because Leroy was asking about the program rules and I misunderstood. He was just being really lovely and saying the program rules.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Leroy.
Because I was trying to work out what program rules there are.
I mean, there are program rules, but that's mostly connected to style guide and things like that.
Yes, so I'm going to... there's information about international performers in the live chat. I'm now going to put in the information about instalments, if I can remember where it is. What's next?
So next we're going to actually go on to talk a bit more about FringeWare, which is our software for registering. We're going to be talking about proofing. So actually, anyone who's reading the instalment scheme, 10 house points, if you notice, are deliberate error there that I've not edited yet. There is one mistake there, and if you find it, well done. 5 points to Gryffindor, or whatever house you identify as.
It was 10 and you dropped it to 5.
That's because I'm a Slytherin. So, FringeWare, you'll hear me talk about a lot. It is basically our online system where you go to register your show.
And just to be absolutely clear on this, do I just jump back to those slides for those 3 ways you can register? Just jump, just jump with the jump. Oh, there's a lot of jumping.
Yeah, no, let's not jump.
We'll go this way. So FringeWare, you will probably, if you're registering yourself, that's when you spend the most time with FringeWare. But in all 3 of these cases, you may still have
the information all ends up, no matter what system your show has been registered on or what method, your information always ends up on FringeWare. So I imagine if you're the sort of primary contact for your show, you'll be the primary contact to us, which sits in FringeWare. So anytime you hear someone talk about FringeWare, that's what it is. It's where we hold all the information on all of the shows.
So do you want to do a super quick demo just to run through some of the key things to bear in mind about FringeWare and things that trip people up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is that it is FringeWare, which is registration.edfringe.com. It's not the Fringe website, edfringe.com. So some people, when they're going to go and log in, they remember they need to log in with us. So they head to our website, the Fringe website, and log in. And they've probably got a user there because it's associated with, maybe they've bought some tickets in the past, and then they wonder why they can't get to all the registration information. So the first step, just make sure you're on FringeWare rather than the Fringe website. If you've used it before, so if you've registered a show, like I think since 2014, I think was the first year we've used this, you will exist on there. So it will recognize your email. If you've forgotten your password, there's the forgotten password link, or you can just contact the team and we'll arrange to sort you out with a new one. But basically you're signing in as a user. So to create your fundamental first step, you have to exist as a user on FringeWare. That's the base level for how to get started. Second to that, so then this is the sort of homepage of once you're all logged in of what you'll see. So you're a user. What you need then is to create an organization. And I know, Daniel, you're not like sort of as au fait with the registration process. So I think sometimes when I'm talking about organizations,
I don't know. I until we started looking at this, I didn't know what this meant. So what is an organization in this system?
So an organization is basically the company or body or what FringeWare sees as the kind of owner of the show that you're going to register. So everything needs to be done by a company, by an organization. Now, please don't feel intimidated by that. That doesn't mean that you need to go and register officially as a company anywhere. It's basically, what is the organization you're creating? That can be you. That could be Daniel. Registering yourself as the organization to then register your show in. A lot of people, to some people, it's like their theatre company. To a stand-up, it may just be their own name. To an exhibition, it could be like the gallery that they show in. Whatever that organisation is then going to be where all of the information sits. And the reason it kind of works like this in this structure, so it goes from user to organisation, then to show, because some people are going to register multiple shows. There'll be some organisations, like a venue, could register hundreds of shows, so they all have to sit within an org. So that's the step. Some people get to this stage and they're like, I can't see anywhere to create a show, and that's just because they've not created their organisation yet.
Okay, what's the next?
So
you're going to show us an example show?
Yeah.
Okay.
First off, so we're gonna. This is you. Once you've created your organisation, that's it. So that's my testing station. That's your dashboard when you're in your organisation. So you probably won't see everything on the left, and you don't want to, because that's my superhero powers on Fringeware. But the bit in the middle, the dashboard, that's what everyone will see. So as you can see, underneath the name and the address, there's like that grey dashboard that has the different sections. You'll open up further to the left in dashboard, where it's like things like your contacts, but you want to go along to shows, which is the page it's showing now. Once you're on there, you'll see that button, create a show, and that's when you start.
You begin your journey.
Yeah.
I'm potentially going to just wrong foot you and ask you a question about the people tab. Is this where you put contact information, or am I wrong?
You're wrong.
I'm wrong. Okay, I'm sorry.
God, Daniel, you're very rarely wrong. No, so your contact information is very much that lives on your initial dashboard and organisation. People, though, is very important. If, say, Daniel's doing a lot of registering, Daniel and I are doing a double act together, let's just say. That'd be a fantastic Fringe show. Take it on the road. So Daniel's setting all of this up. He's doing all this because I'm not. I don't know why. However, you can then go to the people tab and add people to your organisation so as they can help. So if we're doing the show together, Daniel can have his user, can set up the organisation, and then the people tab be like, oh, Alan's testing station should have Daniel and it should have Alan in it. So it's with the people tab, it's where you add people who are involved in your show.
Okay. What's next?
Cool. So what's next, I think, is I've got the inside a show. So once you've started creating a show, I'm going to say one top tip. So I've not got a screen grab of it, but when you click create a show, before you get to this, the first question that comes up is show name. So you have to name your show, and it's then the one thing that you're not able to edit yourself at all at any point in the process. It's kind of like the golden rule of like, that's you, that's registered. If you've got a small tweak to it, you can email the program team, and most of the time we're able to update it for you as long as it's within our rules. But my tip is that will take you to a slightly different screen, which if you're zoomed in too much, if your browser zoomed in, you'll basically see it as a screen, but you won't see where to click next. If you're ever in Fringeware and you don't see how to like either click save or next or complete, if you don't see that grey button, my advice is always just like control minus to zoom out. Because Fringeware on lots of different browsers, it might just zoom differently for people, and you should see it. But once you're through that, you get to here.
We had a question through from Leroy about that people tab again, and he's asking, is that where you add the people involved in the show, such as cast members?
So I would do that on a show level. So if you think about those levels again, organisation level, to use the example of Daniel and I doing a double act again.
So like I'm the producer or something.
We're both pretty heavily involved in the creation of it. So really, we should both be involved. We both might want to be involved. However, if we've got one of our colleagues who's just coming along as a guest and isn't really involved in the creation of the show, hasn't been dealing with the venue, you probably don't want them to have full access to everything. And to be honest, they probably don't want that. But if you add them on the people tab in your show, so Alan the musical attest, I can add Daniel to that, and he can just see that show specifically without seeing everything in my organisation.
So just to recap, your organisation can contain multiple shows. So if there is a cast member or someone you want to be involved with a show, you add them on that people tab. But if you want them to be part of your organisation as a group of people that bring a show to the Fringe, you add them on that people tab. I'd just say we've seen a few people experience connection issues. Everything is looking fine from our side, so if you haven't already, we recommend just refreshing your own browser, and that should just give YouTube a quick nudge to make sure everything's going fine. But the connection seems fine on our end, but sometimes YouTube just has a little bit of a strop because we try and broadcast as near to live as possible, so there isn't a ridiculous satellite delay between you asking a question and us being able to answer it. So it's great you're all back online, but if something else does crop up, let us know there. So
if in doubt, refresh.
If in doubt, it's basically off and on again, which is what we had to do 5 minutes before today's episode started. So I think we could look at EdFringeware for hours and days, and there's a lot to it, as you can see, and it is very complicated for the reasons we covered at the top. So if you are having to register the show yourself, go in, have a look. There are hovers and help icons wherever possible. Have a look around, but just get in touch if you're not sure.
Totally, because to finish off and kind of to lead back to our next slide, so the screen that's up there at the moment is like inside a show, and you'll see on the dashboard all the different things we ask. So general information about context, show information so you give us copy, etc. All the way down, like datelines and venues. Some people don't know, like a dateline is essentially just when you tell us where and when your show is, how much are the tickets. Something that trips people up sometimes in that is that, say you want to make your tickets more expensive at the weekend because it's really popular, all you do is you just create another dateline. You don't do it all in one.
Just further follow-up questions about the People tab, which I'll try and pick up really quickly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Leroy was asking, just to be sure, you can add people to different levels of Red Fringeware, which is the case. But this is more aimed at people who are going to play a role in the setup of your show. It's not where you put in information about your cast. And specifically, he was asking, can I put the cast information on the app? And the short answer is no. For the basis that we have a show listing, which you'll probably see on the program, that also gets replicated on the website and the app. And that is a very short paragraph where you describe the show. There isn't space for the cast. It's just not designed for that. It's designed to help people choose what show to see. And at this point in time, if you're wanting to share cast information, the typical process is actually flyers in the performance itself, isn't it?
Yeah, or absolutely. If one thing you can do is if you've got your own website, you can have like a cast section and then display your website on EdFringeware.
And another thing you can do, either through EdFringeware or through your venues, on your listing on tickets.edfringe.com, you can include links to your social media channels and other information like your YouTube and your Twitter account. And that's another place that you can use to talk about your cast and start promoting your show. And we will have we have multiple episodes actually about marketing a show as we move on in the year.
Sort of finish to be like what the People tab is good for is we talked about participant passes, like so being in Fringe Central. If you add people to your People tab to let them know they're part of the show, that means they can come and use Fringe Central.
And how, just while we're on it, people may encounter the words primary contact and secondary contact. What is that really?
So things like we'll always talk to your organisation contact in terms of registration. So
is that called? What's that called?
So that's the contact. It's kind of not got a name, which is really helpful, but it's the contact that you use to set up that organisation.
Okay.
But then your primary contact within the show, that's who the sort of day-to-day, like the box office will get in touch with. If there's anything wrong with your show, we cut media contact in. So is our media team at the Fringe. If they've got someone interested in your show, they can direct them straight to the media contact. So we let you get really specific in EdFringeware about choosing who's the right person to tackle certain issues.
So we've got, we did start a little late, so we may run over slightly. We've got about 10, 12 minutes to wrap up. We're going to move on to some information about other deadlines, but I just wanted to reassure Michelle and others who've asked other questions that aren't strictly about registration. We are going to come to them, but we'll do them at the very end. There's also a question about audience demographics and the ideal time to have your show, which is quite a meaty question.
That is a very meaty question.
And Jeroen's asked further questions about visa eligibility, and we do just recommend reading the International Performer Guidance or dropping us an email on participants@edfringe.com because there are so many different criteria and nuances, we're not going to be able to cover them.
And honestly, that's not us shrugging you off. That's the team at the end of participants@edfringe.com are the best people to help. And also, every case is so different that they would want it to be specific to you.
So we've covered the main deadlines, but is there something else people need to be aware of about when shows are revealed to the world.
Yeah, so basically at the bottom of there is stuff that a participant would never see, but we see it because we proof it. And it's about the process your show goes through. And basically it means when you've signed off your show, when you've completed it, it goes to our team, we look over it, we don't actively like change things or change meaning of things, but we may just change the style of it to bring it all some sort of uniformity to the chaos of all the sort of different shows. We then send it back. It's really important that you look over that proof, make sure you're really happy, and then you will sign off your show, which basically means it's you saying, yes, I'm happy for that to be listed. At that point, you decide when you'd like your show to go on sale. So you get two options. You can either approve for the next available on sale, or you approve for program launch. So if you're just like, actually, I want to do a big burst of marketing right when the Fringe program goes on sale, we just want to sell tickets from then. That's absolutely fine. You just click on sale from program launch and your show is done, it's approved, but nothing will happen with tickets until the end of June. However, so for example, we've just passed the 21st of January. People who had approved by then, that's when companies approve. Your venue then gets a day after to approve your approval, just to make sure you've not got any times wrong or things like that. They'll be on sale on the 31st of January.
I thought I'd just give a bit of context to this, because if you go back, I think maybe 6 or 7 years, what used to happen is that all the shows would be revealed on program launch day in June. But over time, more people got more organised and more ready, and they had their plans set now. So there was sort of an interest from performers to say, I want to start promoting my show already. I want the tickets to be on sale if it's a ticketed show, or if I'm a free show, I just want to start telling people about the show. So for this reason, we introduced monthly dates where the shows go online and we promote them. So the first one, like Alan said, is next week. And it helps kind of build up the buzz to the festival even earlier, because people, especially if they're traveling from overseas to perform or visit, they like to start planning their Fringe early. So we have these dates just to help them do that. Yeah.
So it's really important. It's not that your show, it's not a case of being, oh, my show is registered by the 11th of February, so I'll be on sale by the 28th. That's not the case. Remember, your show has to go through that process of being read by our team, being proofed, and remember, there could be a lot of other shows in you could be in a queue, and you have to have signed off your show. You have to be like, we've checked all the information, we've gone back and forward, everyone's happy, it's approved. So it's just that difference between registered and sort of signed off and approved.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of steps, because we want to make sure that the listing is right. And on that question, on that statement, sorry, that's not a question, that's a statement. But we had a question about any recommendations on writing a compelling, attractive summary of the show for the programme or website, presuming it's as part of the registration. And I guess there's two things with that. Firstly, that the show description in the printed programme and on the website are slightly different. There's more text to play with.
So programme copy, you get 40 words, excluding the number of words in your title. Web copy is the same, but it's 100 words, so you get that bit more, you can go into a bit more depth. What it really comes down to, and generally a question you will always hear us ask anytime you come to the Fringe for some advice, is think about like, what is it you're doing? What is your show? Tell me your show. We talk about elevator pitches a lot, which is like, can you in 30 seconds really grab someone's attention and be like, my show is this is what the hook is. And that's basically what you want in your copy. You don't want to be like naming lots of cast members or things like that. You want to be like, let someone know the overall kind of vibe, feel, tone of your show. And it goes back to looking through last year's programme. Like, there's no sort of original ideas.
Take inspiration
from what works.
And like Alan says, you are not competing is the wrong word, because people go and see lots of shows when they come to the Fringe, but your show will sit alongside thousands of others. So just think about how you want your show to be seen compared to them, how you want it to stand out. You know, the listing is not for you to say who you are. It's just to convince someone to
get the flavour,
and try and because they probably don't know who you are, and you're trying to encourage them to take a small risk and come and see you, and hopefully your show will be amazing and reward them. But that copy has to convince them. I was also just, before you jump onto that, you did say that the title, you have 40 words minus your title, and that's just for practical reasons. If your title is really big, it takes up lots of space, so we have to take out some of the program copy, otherwise it's not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was going to say, just as an addition to what you were saying, is copy is important, as is your image. You'll be asked to supply an image. You don't have to have that at the point of registration. You can add it at a later date, but I would encourage you to have that before you go on sale. If you're looking back at last year's program and looking through a copy that works, actually, if you just bring up a random page to look at, you will instantly see the images that are working for you. And I think it'll sometimes surprise you. The first year I worked on program was 2010, when it was the first year we had images, and there were ones that I saw like sort of full size on my screen that I was like, that's such a cool, interesting image, there's so much going on. And as soon as I saw it like in the context of being a small thumbnail amongst lots of other images, it just seemed really busy, and actually a simple one of like a coloured background with a really striking image in the middle suddenly was way more appealing. So I'd say a genuinely top tip, looking through that program and seeing what kind of images work is absolutely a good idea.
Time is marching on, but I'm going to pick up another question from Leroy, which is about, when reviewing last year's program, is there a way of analysing the success, such as how well the show sold? And I think that goes back to a question we always ask people, which is why you're bringing a show. Because for some people, they want to sell tickets. For others, it's about exposure and making contacts. So when it comes to ticket sales, that is not public information. The tickets belong to the show. But when it comes to how well the show did and the buzz, I guess you're looking at reviews, but that's quite a tough question.
Yeah, that is quite tough. But again, Google, other search engines are available, but becomes your best friend of just sort of searching those shows as simple as like the name of the show in Ed Fringe. And it is to the shows that get really buzzy, if that's what you're looking for. If you're, by success, you're thinking of reviews and popular shows that were really popular. Chances are, if you just Google their name in Ed Fringe, you're going to get more than one entry. You're going to get lots of different. And
back to some early advice, have a look through shows similar to your own, see any that stand out to you, and reach out to them. See if you can Google them. And if you just say, like, we're going to bring a show in 2019 or beyond, how did your Fringe go? What did you learn? And you'll probably quite quickly learn who achieved what they wanted, whatever that was, selling tickets or building a buzz or making connections. And then you'll learn from them, and they'll tell you their mistakes, because it's a happy, creative community.
And I think about that, it's a nice conversation that you said, Daniel, like, how did your Fringe go? Like did you have a good time? Rather than like, can you tell me how many tickets you sold? It's about like.
Yeah, and we can come to that in our we're going to run past our hour to cover some of the questions that aren't on registration, such as Leroy's about getting reviewers in. That's a great question. But should we just run through the next steps?
So the first one, registration is open. That has happened. Running through like the deadlines that we've talked about, and then leading us straight to August. With the 2nd of August, before you know it, Daniel.
The days really fly by. I can't believe the first show's go online next week.
That's always a big moment for us.
Fringe goers they're very excited. When we posted online yesterday that there's a week to go, suddenly they just came out of the shadows, and they're ready again to start planning their Fringe.
And then I just want to put up a slide of like, keep in touch. Like, hopefully something that we really got across today is that we're here for you. That's literally why we exist. Program at edfringe.com if you have anything to do, any inquiries to do with registration or that process. Participants at edfringe.com if you get anything about looking for a venue, or you're an international performer and you've got questions about visas and things. Sorry, thought I was going to cough.
That's okay. So this is it for our main points about registration, but like I said, there are a number of questions that have come in, not about registration, so we're going to stick around and answer them, but we can also answer any questions about registration or anything else about bringing a show to a Fringe. We're going to be here, so pop them in the live chat. So we're going to try to do this fairly quick fire.
Happy to be tested.
But the first question is it possible to access audience figures or demographics on the website so people can get an idea of when to best schedule their show? So at the root of it is, when do I put a show on? And perhaps part of that as well is, should I do the full Fringe? Should I be morning, afternoon, evening? What's the advice there, as impartial as we are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer, rather annoyingly, is there's not one answer, because every show is so different. So it's about researching as much as you possibly can. Like, be like, you want to be as armed with information as possible. I think that's really important, and that's not, I really hope that's not me being like flippant or in any way looking to avoid the question, but that's like really trying to speak to a venue about like what type of shows normally do well, or I'm doing a theatre show, is that normally stronger in the afternoon for your venue? Because I think there's kind of like a part myth, part fact that tends to be like theatre does better in the afternoon and comedy does better in the evening. But for all the case of, there'll still be theatre goers who are looking for a show at night. So there's like, for every rule there's an exception to it.
That sums up the Fringe really well.
Yeah.
Just because the same person also, they're saying they're doing a short run. What sort of the advice on short run versus full run?
Yeah, so any kind of short run, it pretty much works the same in terms of registration and working that way. Where I would say you have your challenge, and it's not insurmountable at all, is, well, first off, as a note, it depends what you want from the Fringe. If you're just there to like actually just experience, tick off the bucket list, then do you know what? Great, have an amazing week and try not to get too stressed. But if you're doing this as like any kind of career development, or you're looking to get as strong ticket sales or reviews as possible, you're going to have the challenge of, you don't have that 3-week gap to, like we always say, the Fringe is a marathon, not a sprint. So for you, it's going to be a little bit more of a sprint, like kind of middle distance. And it's about doing your prep really early. So if you're only going to be there for a week, you want to let the press know that. You want to let audiences know that they don't have a long time to see your show. I know I'm a little bit guilty sometimes of, like, I'll see stuff at programme stage and be like, oh, I'm definitely going to see that. And then I'll suddenly get to the middle of week 2 when I sort of lift my head out the clouds a little bit, like, right, what do I want to go and see? And I've suddenly went, oh, I've missed it, finished today. So it's absolutely, it's not like necessarily a negative. It's just the be prepared, and in all your communications, let people know we're here for this week, limited run. See us now.
We've got a slightly different question from Michelle, which was, so even if I register at the free Fringe, I have to pay rights. And essentially that goes back to one of our earlier points, that we, the Fringe Society, we don't run venues, and registration is something you choose to do. You are absolutely welcome to come to Edinburgh and put on a show, but the benefits out the support, we're here to help. So we would obviously recommend registering to allow us to help and support you, because we have, for example, we have a specific team that help on marketing your show. Yeah. And you sometimes get people coming in who aren't registered.
Yeah, I've been that person, like, sort of sitting in the media office talking to people during August and trying to help them get reviews or share contacts. But all of that comes with it's that support that's already like kind of at capacity with just the sheer number of shows that we have to get round and see, and that support is available to registered participants. And I've had the experience of having to be like, I can't give you the information I want to give you because you're not registered.
Because it's not fair on those that have registered to then
exactly
to have someone not.
And actually, when we're trying to get help as many people as possible, it's already difficult to help 3,500 people. So we couldn't extend that to people who weren't registered. So
with the Free Fringe, it's a venue, it's an independent organisation, whichever one you choose, that's up to you. But registration is here, it's available. We do recommend it. It would be great because we love to help you on your Fringe journey and beyond. But you're absolutely in your rights to not register and just do what you want. I mean, it's the Fringe. You can literally do what you want. Almost anything. As long as it's within the law. That is generally the only. That's our one caveat. Any restriction. I'm just working through some of the questions. We're kind of jumping ahead to what will probably be episode 6. But we could quickly cover it now about getting reviewers and just generally promoting your show and what we recommend there. So it's about exactly knowing what your show is, knowing that pitch inside out. I think PRs and journalists are getting a lot more sort of savvy to like nobody wants to just hear hyperbole. No one just wants to hear like, this is nothing like you'll have ever seen before. They actually just want you to be like, what's your hook? What's interesting about your story? Why are you wanting to tell it now? And then obviously you want to put that in a press release and get that information out there. That's we will from April have a list available called the Media Contacts List, which goes out to all media contacts for all registered shows, which has a list of all the journalists that are covering the Fringe, and who do a lot in advance. Daniel, I'm just going to turn on the just to change it up. I'm going to turn on for all my hand gestures. final questions was about how the Fringe Society can connect future participants with former participants, and recommended that. And I guess our answer at this stage is that we're an impartial organisation, so we're not here to say this person's advice is better than another's. But also every person's experience is different, whether they're now a Hollywood name that did the Fringe or whether they're still starting out. They all had different journeys and different experiences. Some were street performers that became stand-up comedians. Yeah. Some were actors in student productions who are now nominated for Oscars.
Some of them went on to write Hamilton.
None of them, there's no one journey, so we're not here to say this is the right way to do the Fringe. There is no right or wrong way.
Do you know what, being involved, and like to jump way ahead to like Fringe Central time, that is absolutely one of the things I love about that building and how it works is participants from sort of all across the landscape of the Fringe are in and around Fringe Central. So some of those more experienced artists or people who've been there before will actively be there running their own events maybe, and it's a really good chance to like meet people, network. We have a arts industry team who have like networking brunches with like exceptionally good bacon rolls.
So with regards to the live chat, that's all for today. If I have missed you off, if you could just give us a quick nudge and pop it in. I'm checking if there's anything else to cover, but I think that's it. I'm going to jump back to the slides we have, which cover the ways you can get in touch, because you may be listening to this recording months from now, listening back to us, and you have questions that we're not here to answer because we're not here. So just email us. Do follow us on social media. I would say that because I run those channels. I'm very biased. Just get in touch. There's no such thing as a silly question.
Yeah, and sort of my last sort of pearls of wisdom, if I can call them that, is from my experience, like working for the Fringe for a number of years, but also having been a participant myself, the people who sort of get in touch base with us and then sort of keep in contact throughout the year, you tend to be like, when you meet them in August, well, one, it's really nice to come and say hello and put a face to the name, but also they're the people who are most kind of at ease, because the kind of, sometimes it's not even like we've not told them the world, like we've not given them like some sort of magic bit of advice. We've actually just touched base with them to the point where they're now like, oh, I've never got overly stressed because I've always known what I need to be doing now and what I should be doing next.
But you will have to, I've put the webcam back on, you will have to wear that yellow shirt so people
forever,
can find
so
you.
People can see me.
So thanks for tuning in. We haven't had any burning questions appear at the end, so all we have to say now is thanks. And if this felt like a bit like you jumped into the deep end, we do have a recap episode on the 13th and 14th of February where we'll kind of cover everything. We could somehow try and squeeze 3 episodes into everything just to catch up, because everyone's at different stages of their Fringe journey. Yesterday someone asked, is it too late to be finding a venue? It's not. If you're just starting this at day one, you've still got time.
Yeah.
So thank you, and I'm gonna say goodbye.
Yeah. Have a great Fringe.